Greetings internet, it's Katie and welcome back to my channel. I know there are a lot of videos that you could be watching right now, a lot of things you could be doing with your time, but I'm glad that you're here because this video, I think, is going to leave you a better person after watching, because today we are talking all about stress. And it's raining outside, so the cars are like making a lot of noise and I don't have a microphone. So let's get past that and just, find our zen. This is our zen, this is my zen space right now because I'm sitting in my bed, which is by far my favorite place to ever be. So I'm feeling very zen and I hope you are too. Maybe there's some good background music I can throw in here to increase the zen even more. But today I have my podcast journal with me because I've been talking on my podcast a lot recently about stress and about how through different phases of our lives. If you guys have known me since I was in middle school, if you've watched from the beginning, so you've seen me through a lot of different times in my life, college and just everything that goes along with that, and middle school and high school, and just a lot of different phases. And now I'm in a brand new one where it's a little uncertain. I'm just here to kind of give you a little bit of self-assurance in that, what you're going through and the stress that you feel is something that is normal, and that's something that you can turn into something beautiful, something that will help other people. And so I'm just gonna kind of ramble and talk to you guys about some revelations I've had recently, and you guys can just kick back, sip some tea or some coffee, as you'll see that'll come up later, and just relax. On the internet there's so many videos where it's just like so much happening, and this is one of those videos where not a lot's gonna happen except for I'm just gonna talk and hopefully you're gonna listen. So I've had my fair share of stress in terms of jobs and in terms of what the heck am I doing with my life in the future. I like to think that I'm mostly stressed about the present, but I think I'm also very stressed about the future. Yeah, the future is fucking scary, guys. Like, it's props to us that we can even think about it or even plan for it, because it's something that no one knows the future. So it's hard to even say that I'm preparing for my future when I don't even know what that is, So I feel you. All the people out there that are dealing with stress in college and stress in just getting a career and finding your way and finding your relationship and things like that, I totally feel you. And I think that the universe has this knack of making us think, or kind of convincing us that we have to always know what we're doing and that we have to always have a goal. It's something that's brought up all the time. If you go to a family gathering like Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything, and people are like, so what are you doing? Or when you're in college, oh, what are you doing post-grad? Or all these things, and everyone's always asking, including yourself, you're always asking what the heck am I doing? What's my purpose on this planet? And it gets to the point where you feel like this world is so big and that you are so small, and that you're literally drowning in this huge pool that is life, and you're just such a small fish, It's no secret that I love my job. I've talked about it a lot, I really do. But, I guess it is kind of a secret that there's moments where I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, or that I think maybe there's a better place for me, maybe a better city for me. New York gets really overwhelming sometimes. I talked about it in my last video, or 2 videos ago, my assumptions video, where I just was saying that I don't even know if I'm gonna be here for a long time. I know I make it look glamorous, and that's part of me just thinking that I want to make things look pretty all the time. It's so normal to sometimes feel that you just have absolutely no idea if you're even happy. The other night I was reading a book in bed, which I do often. I've become a lot more in love with reading these days than I used to be. I genuinely just didn't have time in college, and I feel like no one really read books in college. It was we kind of read the books we were supposed to read for class, but nothing else. So I've been reading a ton of books, as you guys noticed in my last haul. I talked about that. And I was reading a book, and all of a sudden it just popped in my brain that I needed to write something down. I grabbed my notebook next to my bed. I always have a notebook. Actually I have a bunch. I have one there, pens everywhere. That's just me. I'm constantly writing things down, constantly thinking. I live alone, so it is no secret that sometimes when you're alone for a long time, you get a little bit sad. And I think it's because we've let ourselves, think too much. But at this moment, I was just letting myself feel very deeply, and grabbed my journal, and I wrote down this, which I'm gonna read to you guys. So hopefully I won't. I'm really bad at reading things out loud. I always get really, really stressed about it. But it feels like we're reaching out desperately, trying to grasp something, but our eyes are closed. We don't know what we're reaching out for so desperately. It seems to take shape, the shape of a job or a city or a boy, but as soon as it seems to form into a tangible shape, it disappears. It takes the shape of something else that we still don't know. We crave these distant places and passion, but then we don't, and then we do, and then we don't. The truth is, knowing what you want, such a glorified and sexy idea, is harder than it sounds. truthfully, I don't know more than I do. Deep. I had written this down after a particularly, not like hard day at work, but it was one of those days where I was just constantly like letting my mind wander and, you know, imagine myself in different places. I have this constant reoccurring, you know, thought that I should be like, you know, on a farm somewhere. Like I always like, I don't know why my mind always goes to that. I think it's because it's such a polar opposite place than New York, because New York is just so New York, as you probably know. It's like a city, there's people everywhere, it's loud, it's kind of gross sometimes, you know, and I always just picture myself like, you know, the various movies that exist in this planet. I noticed today when I was looking through movies on Prime, it's like the you know, constant storyline is like, oh, she was a big city girl and then she goes back home to her roots in like South Carolina or something, and she falls in love with someone that like she grew up with, and she's like, no, I'm not a small town girl, I'm a big city girl. And it's like that like very classic storyline that a lot of movies and shows play off of. But I always like have this just like thought that maybe I'm not in the right place at the right time, or maybe I'm not, you know, doing the right thing. There's always going to be stress present in your life. You know, it's going to take different forms, as I mentioned in my like crazy and, you know, deep, you know, journal entry here. Like you're grasping out for things you don't know, and then they change shape and they change form, and it's like we always have this weird, you know, feeling that maybe we need something else or something different or something more. But I think, you know, the kicker is there's always going to be stress in our lives, and you know, the best thing we could possibly do is to learn how to combat it for ourselves and learn what we need to do to make it feel a little less miserable. And that sounds like really bleak, but it's true. And I think that I finally, guys, like after a lot of years of trying, and who's to say it won't change, but like I finally found a mechanism that works for me in combating stress, and that is why I'm here today to share those learnings with you guys and just kind of how I've grown to the point where I know how to deal with it now. It's kind of boiled into a two-pronged approach. And before I tell you guys those two things that I do, I want to introduce a little metaphor or analogy, kind of a little pretty picture that will kind of give some clarity to this, because I know it's all just me talking and it's just words and you're hearing them and it's like, oh, that's pretty, but like, what does it actually mean? Sometimes it helps to like visualize something. So I want you guys to visualize this. I actually heard about this from a follower, so one of you guys was amazing and DM'd me about this. So picture this, you're cooking, you have a pot of boiling water on a stove, and you have an egg and a potato. You put the egg in, you put the potato in, and two completely different things happen to each of the objects. You know, the potato, it softens, the egg, it hardens. The same circumstance, the hot water, the same situation that both objects are being, you know, in contact with, but two different things happen to them. Why? Because both things are made completely of different things. You know, an egg and a potato, the consistency inside is completely different. But in the same circumstance, they react differently. This brings me to my next question. Are you going to be the potato that softens in the hot water, or an egg that hardens in the hot water? When I first heard this, I was like, I have absolutely no idea what I would be. Little side note, I've always thought of, you know, staying soft in hard situations to be a really noble thing, and a very, maybe not noble, but just a very good quality, because you don't let the world harden you. And I always thought hard was like, you know, it was like bitter and just salty and sad and like angry, you know, and I thought soft as being a good thing, but I guess you can kind of take it either way. So like the softness could be, you know, being weak in the hot water, but any way that you take it, you know, just know that the circumstance does not define you. It's what you're made of. When you're in hot water, you know, people always say it, it's like you're in a stressful situation, you're like dealing with something tough. So I always, you know, considered hot water to be stress. You know, that got me thinking about other things that encounter hot water. And I talked about this in my podcast. If you've already heard this, you're probably like, okay, Katie, like get on with it. But it's such a powerful metaphor. I actually told a bunch of my friends yesterday when we were out and the day before, and they were all just like shook. So I thought that I would just, you know, say it on here. So naturally in Katie fashion, like that whole thing got me thinking of something completely different that's kind of related, but like completely different. And so I was thinking about hot water and how hot water affects other things, because, you know, we encounter a lot of hot water, especially in the winter when there's like tea and like all sorts of things. And I was thinking about coffee, because I'm kind of, there's no secret about it, I'm like a coffee addict. I need it to survive. Like it's so bad and I need to like simmer down on it. But so I was thinking about coffee and how, you know, coffee encounters hot water, or coffee beans rather encounter hot water, but instead of letting the hot water define it, it defines the hot water. The coffee bean affects and changes the hot water. It takes the situation or the circumstance, which is the hot water, and it changes the property of it. It changes it into something that is enjoyable and something that's, you know, something that gets you out of bed in the morning, something that people are excited about, and people create amazing things from drinking coffee, you know? Not to say those who don't drink coffee aren't gonna do great things, but you know what I mean. It's like coffee inspires people. Coffee is the root of a lot of people's day. So where on earth are you going with this, Katie? I know you're asking yourself, I'm asking myself, like, where the heck am I gonna go from here type of thing. I just kind of talk on these videos. I don't know where we're going, but I promise it's gonna be a fun ride. So obviously we're an egg in some situations and a potato in another. It's like, you know, going through different phases of your life. You're made of different things, I think. You change. But I think that something we can strive to be in this day and age is a coffee bean, because instead of letting the circumstance, the stress, the crushing defeat that we feel when we are stressed sometimes, instead of letting that define us, you know, make the circumstance better and, you know, better tasting, instead of giving all of the power to the circumstance and to the universe. You know, you can think of it in a universe way. It's like, I heard Oprah say this once, and I just, you know, take it with me forever. I like insert it into every situation because I think it just like, it really does apply to everything. Be the driver of your life. The second that you get in that passenger seat and you let someone else, or you let the universe drive your life, you know, you're gonna be dropped off who knows where. You don't know where you're going. You're not in control of where your life goes. You don't wanna be in the passenger seat of your life. You know, you wanna be the driver. And as I mentioned, you know, it's a sexy idea that isn't often true, that you always know what you're doing. Back when I had a car, sometimes I would go on drives and not know where I was going. I would just go for a drive. You know, that was actually my stress combating mechanism back in the day. Why did I say mechanism so weirdly? Mechanism. Back in college, because I would always just go for drives sometimes, and you know, even when I did know where I was going, sometimes, you know, there would be unexpected stops on the way, but at least I was in control. In being that coffee bean, you know, making the circumstance better, I think a lot of times, you know, people don't know what that looks like. You know, okay, so I'm in a stressful situation. How on earth do I, you know, make the situation better? How do I make good out of this shitty situation, or this horrible feeling that I'm experiencing where I just have absolutely no idea what I'm doing and I'm literally drowning inside? Like, how do I make that any sweeter? There's no way. And I think that the way that I do it, first and foremost, there's two ways that I do it, but the first way that I do is taking time for myself. You know, there's this beautiful thing at work called personal days. Maybe not even a day, just take a lunch break, take an hour, take 2 hours, take as much time as you need to just do whatever you need to do to make yourself you again. And for me, it looks different for everyone. I'm a very creative person, so for me, a lot of times writing things down helps me. Drawing like stupid pictures helps me. Just sitting outside and, you know, in the sun, you know, just listening to some birds, like, I don't know, going on like a little trip for a weekend, like just little things that I need to do. People are going to expect things of you. You know, you can't get past that. People in your life, my family members, you know, my extended family, are always gonna think, oh, Katie's onto something great, what is she doing? And like always asking me, you know, about my job and about my career and about my boyfriend that doesn't exist. You know, people have all these ideas for you, but I think it's the most important thing that you can do for yourself to understand who you are from your perspective. Believe me, guys, I know firsthand what it's like to just, when you're in this moment of stress and this, you know, feeling like you don't know what you're doing and you just want to do everything you can to avoid it. It feels like there isn't much beauty in this world. It's almost like, you know, when we were kids, when we were younger, and everything just seemed so possible, you know, and as we get older, it's almost like someone threw the curtain back and we're now seeing, you know, what actually goes on in the world. And it's so sobering to the point where it becomes so depressing, and we forget to see that silver lining. It's really, really tough sometimes. And even if it's easy to forget this sometimes, you have such a place here. You have such an impact here, even if it feels like it's so small and so, you know, just not essential for the way that, you know, the world works. I always, you know, would get so down on myself thinking that if I wasn't here tomorrow, that the world would carry on exactly as it, you know, it does, and nothing, you know, would really matter in the greater scheme, and you know, people would still go to work tomorrow, and it's just stuff like that. But we can't think like that, because you have such a hand in this universe that you don't even know. I think the goal isn't to try to live the most amazing life you possibly can. I think it's, you know, living your life knowing that, you know, you have the power to instill so much in other people. And a lot of times we don't take advantage of that, and that's why we don't feel like we have a place here, because we kind of just become so obsessed with our own lives and ourselves that we forget that there's so many lives out there that we can touch, and so many things that we can create that will help people. And ultimately, I think the best way that I combat my stress is by helping other people feel less stressed. And I talked about this actually in a video forever ago. You guys might remember. It was freshman year I filmed this video. It was called How to Be Pretty, and it was like an iconic video of my freshman year. Like, it was just like all my videos from there just became so much better in my opinion, because I wasn't afraid to be open with you guys anymore, because that was the first time I'd ever been like really brutally honest. And I basically talked about, you know, the ways that you can feel pretty. It was called How to Be Pretty. So I essentially was like trying to teach people how to feel pretty in their own skin. And the way that I said it was, you know, you can feel pretty by telling her, telling him, telling whoever that they are pretty too, or like just instilling, you know, confidence in other people makes you feel better about yourself. It sounds so cliche, you know, like giving back will essentially give back to you, and it's like something that, you know, your parents tell you and that everyone in the world is telling you to, like, you know, donate to this charity and all this stuff. But I think a lot of times we forget that we can donate in other ways. What I do know is, although you don't know what everyone's been going through, you still do have the power to make what they're going through a little bit better. And I think that, you know, it's kind of like a Starbucks drive-through mentality. It's like you pay for the person behind you and they pay for the person behind them. It's like, you know, and if enough people were just kind and maybe a little bit understanding. Like, you don't have to be the nicest, most like amazingly bubbly, like, oh my god, I love your dress person. It can take a different form. It can be just listening to someone and not judging them. Maybe just being a little less judgmental, you know, or maybe just cutting someone some slack for being late, or little things like that. I think we just have to accept that the future is going to arrive when it is going to arrive. It's going to arrive when it does. And we don't have to exhaust ourselves, exhaust every part of our being in trying to figure out when and how and who and everything, you know, involved in that, and when it's gonna happen. Like, when is it gonna arrive? When am I gonna get this? When am I gonna get that? And almost forcing the hand of the universe and forcing, you know, things to happen when they're not supposed to. I'm not saying you should surrender to the universe and like let the universe rule your life, as I just mentioned. I'm saying that sometimes you have to trust you and your timing. You know, that's important. And also going back to what I said earlier about just taking time for yourself, taking time to process and reflect and just sit in bed with a cup of tea and a, you know, book, if that's what it looks like for you. I don't know if it looks like going for a run or something for you. It doesn't look like that for me, but, you know, I'm picturing it as a book because I think about books often. You know, perhaps other people have opened up that book, you know, the book of you, and have read, you know, that little like blurb, the inside little blurb that kind of just tells the general story, you know, maybe the best parts and the worst parts, but, you know, you're the one person that can read between the lines of the book, and you know exactly the motivation for the things that you're doing. And although you don't know maybe where you're going, you know, you still hold that book in your hands, and you still are the driver of your life. So don't get in the passenger seat and let yourself drive, okay? Even if you don't know where you're going. I think that's probably the best piece of advice I could leave you with. One of my old professors used to say at the end of each lecture, he'd be like, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So here I am saying, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So yeah, guys, that's my video. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys all in my next one. Bye.